Hey guys, Chris the Midwest Bass Hunter. Today I want to talk to you about my favorite reaction baits for the early spring. We're talking cold water, or in some cases, when the lake just thaws if you live up north. So this is a short list of baits, and we're not talking about finesse baits. We're talking about baits you throw and wind and move, cover a lot of water to find those fish. It's a short list, only 3 baits, but I'm going to break them down for you today. All right, bass hunters, the lipless crankbait. This is one of the all-time best springtime cold water baits. They come in all different shapes, sizes, brands. This here is a Rapala. This is the biggest one I have. It's 1.5 ounces. It's a big bait. It's a great bait. You can just throw it out there, cover a lot of water. So with this type of bait, a lipless crankbait, you can do a lot of different stuff. You can actually hop it along the bottom, kind of fish it like a jig. It works great for that. You can just throw it out there and wind it. You can do all kinds of different varying retrieves. You can kind of run it like a jerk bait, reel it down a little bit and jerk it through the column. And there's lots of different styles of this. So most of them have a rattle inside. This has just one single rattle, I believe. Like I said, this is a Rapala 1.5 ounces clack and wrap. Here's a Sea-Bile lipless seeker. And this is more of like a natural bait fish color, like a shad color. And this has more rattles in it, but you can hear it has that deeper knock, that little bit deeper sound to it. Whereas here we have a Strike King, red-eye shad, and this has more of a high pitch rattle. It's got a lot more little BBs in it. And then here we have one that is silent. This is a Rapala, what do they call this thing? A rip and wrap. And this one has no rattles in it. It's completely silent. So you can try different things, different combinations. See what works best. If you're not getting action on one, switch to something with a little bit different rattle or a little different shape or size to it. Like I said, there's lots of different ones. And, you know, color selection for me, I usually go off of the type of water it is. A lot of the water that I fish is moderately clean to really clean. So I don't usually fish very many dark colored baits. So I usually have some stuff like this that's a little bit more natural looking or a little brighter. The mirrored baits work really good. That's Bill Lewis Rattletrap. But they're just all different kinds. And you can go from this little cheapie right here. This is a $2 Bass Pro Shops lure. And this thing will catch you some fish. One thing I would recommend with these Bass Pro lures, just change the hooks. But other than that, this will catch fish as good as the next bait. Here's an interesting one. I've never fished with this before, but I picked some up the other day. I actually got 2 of these. I got one in a red crow color. I just don't have it in this box. And this is a Matsuo. They call it an Akari Shad or something like that. It's got these gills on it. So it'll be interesting to see how that one acts. If it's got a little different action to it. But this is just a great bait to throw in the springtime. Any of these lipless crankbaits, they're going to catch a fish. You'll find where the bass are with this bait. Now, the only thing with this bait is if you're fishing around a lot of structure or cover, sometimes this bait's going to hang up a lot. Now, it does kind of go through the water like this. But if you're kind of fishing it at varying retrieves, if you're letting it sink a little bit and then jerking it, or if you're fishing it kind of like a jig, it's pretty easy to hang it up on stuff with these big treble hooks here. So this would be kind of my open water, clean water option where there's less structure. I'll use this a lot of times, but you can fish this thing wherever, and it will bounce off of wood pretty good. it runs, it kind of pulls from here. So it's when you run it into something, it kind of bounces off, but it can get snagged up sometimes. So there we go, lipless crankbait. All right, next I have the chatterbait or the bladed jig. So this is a Strike King Rage blade. It's not a chatterbait. It's kind of like a bladed jig. It's a little different, but it kind of does the same thing. This is just a great bait in the springtime. A lot like the lipless crankbait, you can kind of fish it like a jig. You can just chuck it and wind it. You can do varying retrieves, pull it along, let it sink, pull it along, jerk it. You can do a lot of different stuff with this. And it's a versatile bait, and it works really good. Now, I have a bunch of different colors here. Most of these are actually Z-Man chatterbaits. Like I said, this is a Strike King Rage blade, which is kind of a different variation of the same thing. And this is a small bait company. So you can find lots of different bait companies that make these things. And, mostly they do kind of act the same. And they all work pretty good in my experience. I like to fish the chatterbait where I have more structure or too much structure, where I don't like to fish the lipless crankbait, because this is a little bit more compact, single hook pointed up, so there's a lot less chance of snagging this up. You run this into a piece of lumber, it's just going to bounce off and go over top of it. There's lots of different variations. Here's a chatterbait freedom, so it's got like a free floating hook, but lots of different things you can do with these. The other thing that I like about these is if the fish are a little bit less active, you can still fish this in a finesse way. So you can pitch this thing around cover and work it just like you would a jig or any other finesse style bait. With most lures, I like to use darker colors and darker water. So here's a black and blue, works perfect in dirty stained water. And obviously I've got different colors of white. This one's a little bit kind of like a crappy color. And then just straight up white. And that works good in cleaner water, moderate to really clean water. So the chatterbait's just a great lure to cover water in the springtime. Another bait that I really like in the springtime to cover lots of water and get reaction bites is the spinnerbait. This is probably one of the most widely used bass fishing lures out there. It's been around forever. Basically, you got a jig, a wire coming off of it with two blades. Well, one or two blades, not always two. Sometimes a lot more than two. And there's different style of blades. Now this here is a Colorado blade, the small one, and a willow blade. And this type of lure with the willow blades, I like to use in moderate to clean water, and in varying different colors. This is, I don't know what you call this color. Could almost call it kind of like a crawdad color, which is a good color in the springtime. Also, here's just a white and chartreuse, same kind of blade setup. These are excellent baits in clean water. Here's like a sexy shad type color. These do the job. If there's fish around and they're looking to eat, you're going to get bites on this thing all day long. I've caught so many fish on spinnerbait before where my spinnerbait actually broke. Had that happen a few times. In dirtier water, obviously you're going to use darker colors. Here's a black spinnerbait, and then the Colorado blade. The Colorado blade makes more of a vibration in the water and less flash. So here, this big willow blade, that makes a lot of flash. It's like a mirror. And so that's going to look like a little bait fish swimming through the water, which in a dirty stained water, the fish might not be able to see that. He's going to rely more on his senses to feel that fish, feel that bait fish. So he's going to feel the vibration of this big old blade beating in the water. You can fish these, like I said, you can fish these slow, you can fish them fast, however you want to do it. Let the fish tell you what they want. Same thing with the vibrating jig. You can fish this, you can slow it down, you can throw it up to cover and let it sink and fish it kind of like a jig. Or you can just throw it out there, crank it in. You can do different kinds of retrieves where you retrieve it, let it sit for a second or two and then start retrieving it again, kind of get this hopping motion through the water. You can just bounce it right off the bottom. Couple of different colors here, just a black and blue, which always works good, and then just a straight up black. And these big Colorado blades, they really do some serious thump in the water. So guys, these are my favorite baits for reaction bites in the spring. You got the lipless crankbait, the spinnerbait, and the vibrating jig or chatterbait. Like I said, these are my favorites. These aren't necessarily the best ones. I don't claim to be any expert, but these are the ones that I like to use, and I've had lots and lots of success on them in my life, you know, fishing. So thanks for watching today, guys. Please make sure you subscribe. Hit that little bell so you don't miss anything. Our ice is finally out up here, so we're going to be out chucking one of these in just the next day or two. Thanks for watching.